What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. Aaron Keller just released a new dev update, Director's Take, Balancing Heroes and Matchmaking. Aaron says, a few weeks ago, we published the first in this series of updates on the game. It's crazy how much has happened since then. We launched Season 3, announced a collab with One Punch Man, and I'm now dating Genji. I feel so lucky. I wanted to dive into two topics today, Season 3 balance and the matchmaker. We feel that the start of Season 3 is in a much better state of balance than the start of Season 2. We hear from players that balance is the best it's been since the launch of Overwatch 2, while the game feels fresh based on all the changes made. It's great watching that discussion and to foster it. I'd like to give a bit more details and a bit less commentary. Let's look at the support role first. On the positive side, most supports are viable in nearly every skill tier. Brigitte has really popped this season and has the highest win rate for nearly all skill tiers except for top 500, where Zenyatta takes the lead, with both averaging out to a nearly 55% win rate. On the other end of the spectrum are Kiriko and Moira at around 45% win rate. This goes to show that heroes with the highest win rates aren't always the heroes that are played the most. When we look at who is actually being played, the top supports are Ana, Kiriko, and Mercy for nearly all skill tiers until Silver and Bronze, where Moira becomes picked quite a bit. It's counterintuitive that Kiriko has such a high pick rate at the highest levels of play, but such a low win rate, and Brigitte has such a high win rate, but mediocre play rate. While it would be fun to pick on this group, we tend to think that highly skilled players are continuing to pick certain heroes for good reasons, and we're getting additional metrics for maps, team comps, and team fights to try to understand this. If it's fruitful, expect to hear more about it. In my opinion, when he describes this high-level phenomenon, I think that it's because Brigitte is the type of character that you don't want to play her in a bad matchup. If you're being overwhelmed by, let's say, a Reinhardt, or the enemy begin to counter you and focus you down in front, or for whatever reason are able to target you at all, you kind of just need to swap because then you'll just die every fight. So therefore, Brigitte, if she's viable, is likely going to have that kind of high win rate effect because she's the type of pick that you don't stay on when you're getting countered, and it feels kind of obvious that you are. If you've watched our tier list video, you won't be surprised at Kiriko underperforming in Season 3. I think that deflation of her win rate is because players stay on the pick when they shouldn't be, without really knowing or realizing that it's going to be in a losing matchup, because you always sort of feel like you have the agency as Kiriko to hit the shots or make the plays or land the cleanse in order to win, but it's all kind of situational timing based, and I think the pure stats of other supports are easier. I'd say as well, there's other things happening in the meta for Kiriko to not feel as important or as a must pick. If there's shield tanks that are playable, they often can interact with one of her strongest abilities, her ultimate, as well as her headshots. She can't land headshots and you can shield off and disengage from her ultimate, well then she's just kind of decent. Next section, he says tanks. Tanks are in a great spot right now. It's almost hard to pick a bad tank. At the top end, Reinhardt has the highest win rate of tanks for most tiers, reaching about 58% in bronze through plat, aka the metal ranks. At Masters and above, Sigma edges him out and sits at 50% win rate in top 500. Hog is struggling a bit, even though there are still situations where he can be successful. Winston and Zarya can perform at certain ranks, and the rest of the roster is solid across all tiers. Wrecking Ball is probably the biggest topic in the community right now, with takes varying. Some think he's overpowered, others feel like he's in a good spot, and still others think both and flip-flop, back and forth. His win rate is among the top 3 to 4 tanks at most tiers and bounces between 55 and 51%. His pick rate is lower in the metal ranks, increasing as player skill increases. By top 500, he is far and away the most picked tank, and we think this has enabled other heroes to stand out in the current meta along with Wrecking Ball, but we are keeping an eye on him and want to make sure that players don't get fatigued by seeing too much of the little guy. There have been some big swings in the damage roll. There are two stories here. From a numbers perspective, DPS feels fairly balanced across the board, and Season 3 has been called the season of hitscan by many of you, or possibly the season of Cassidy. Changes to Sojourn, as well as buffs to a few other characters, have opened a new set of heroes for people to play. Cassidy, Pharah, Widowmaker, and Tracer have risen in playtime. In fact, Cassidy is the most picked hero by a huge margin at all ranks except for top 500, where he's tied with Tracer. and he continues to move up. Around 30% of matches have Cassidy on both sides. Besides Symmetra, it's harder to talk about the most powerful heroes for DPS at middle to higher ranks. The band that most damage heroes fall within is between 47 and 53% win rate. Pharah, Widow, Tracer, and Sim hover around the top, but things shift around almost daily. At low ranks, the top heroes by win rate are Symmetra and Torbjorn. It's always Symmetra and Torbjorn. In fact, Symmetra typically has the highest win rate in the game for all roles at all ranks except Master and above. But of course, as they've explained in previous blog posts, that's because she's used more situationally anyway and wins hard at her good matchups and loses hard at her bad ones, and you usually switch off her anyway. Sombra, at the low end of power, did have a significant lift this season and has a win rate around 46% at Diamond and above. With the current state of the game, we're not looking at doing any balance changes until our mid-season patch. So what this is confirming is there won't be any quick little hot fixes to tweak around the game balance to fix the previous thing they did. Instead, there'll be like a medium tier list of changes and tweaks for the mid-season patch, but they're not rushing out to fix anything in the balance state since everything's performing pretty well. Next subject, they're talking about the matchmaker. He says, we made some big changes to the matchmaker this season. The primary goal was to optimize the pairing of players to minimize the MMR difference within a specific role. For example, when making matches, we put more emphasis on the DPS player on each team being closer in skill than we do for the DPS players on one team being evenly matched with the tank players on the other team. This is what they describe as role delta. They try to keep the roles mirrored in rank. This has worked, and matches have a much tighter skill delta between players of the same role. There have been some other positive effects to these changes. In ranked, queue times have dropped, and for high skill matches, they've dropped significantly. Average match quality has also risen across the board. Previously, the longer a player waited, the looser our restrictions on skill difference could potentially be. This is still true, but that range should be more condensed. However, there have been some downsides to these changes, some of them unforeseen. Queue times have risen in unranked a bit, and for groups with large skill differentials, they've risen quite a bit. We've made changes here, and queue times for unranked are already moving lower. We've also heard from players that they are experiencing large win-loss streaks in-game. To be clear, we do not cause or prevent streaks based on an ideal win rate for players. We're studying these reports, and we'll share more information when we get it. The issue we're hearing most from our players is encountering people from vastly different skill levels in their ranked games. Prior to Season 3, the worst 5% of Grandmaster level matches would have players 7 divisions apart, the equivalent of Gold 3 to Silver 5. When we initially shipped 2.3, and I assume he means the most recent patch for Season 3, this leaped to 12 divisions apart or greater. We have made numerous changes since then and are making changes almost daily, and this has now been reduced to 9 divisions. We have additional changes planned for the mid-season patch that should improve this further. Okay, that's it. Talk to you all soon, and I'll see you in game. What do you guys think of this quick developer update? Is the game pretty balanced? And since we're not getting balance changes until the mid-season patch, what do you think we should be getting? Anything? What do you think the stats they're dropping about the matchmaker? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. This week, there was a new patch to the game, which wiped all of the replays that you guys have sent in, so I didn't quite get all of them, unfortunately. However, I do and have been clipping them aside to make some very high quality guides coming up. So please take the link in the description to submit in your replay codes of matches where you lost that you thought you played well and deserved to win. We appreciate you sending them in. They will be combining into very useful videos, I think, coming up soon. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to click subscribe and the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.